Hello everyone and welcome to our possibly I should say we've been doing this for 4 years now. It is our 54th presentation, 54th webinar, and this is we are having at this time an unbelievable, like it's almost 500 people who have signed up, and more than almost 200 people, some are already online, and it's growing by the second it is pouring in, and like we've got more than 100 plus registration just from the US, and I'm really very excited, and so is the council, for this webinar that is happening, and that's where we have Nitin and Matan sir coming ahead. So without much ado, I will just push directly into the webinar. All right, so first things first, this is the webinar all about PCI DSS 4.0 latest updates that you need to know. And of course, if you're attending the webinar, you get CPE points, 1 CPE point for the entire webinar, but you have to be there till the end. In case you are not there till the end, then you will lose your points. All right, so be there till the end. And of course, there is our YouTube channel, and it is almost having 2,000 subscribers on our channel too, and a ton of free content. I'm posting the link also in the chat window as of now, and you can just visit that too to see our YouTube channel. Do subscribe and click on the bell icon for that. One second. Yeah, and with the yeah, these are a list of the past webinars that we have had. PCI DSS, it's on and on. It's quite a few webinars, and Nitin, as you're aware, is not really a new one to our webinar. He's always been there, a great supporting. So many webinars that is happening. Do visit our channel and go through the content. It's all for free. This is our 55th webinar that is happening. And of course, as you go along, this is going to be a very live, query webinar that will be happening. Do post in your queries. You've got more than 45, 47 queries on our email address, askus@VISTA InfoSec.com. Of that, we selected like 14. But let me tell you and assure you and promise you that we will be responding to all of them by email. But we selected the top, and I wouldn't say top, like we selected 14 of them. With the blessings of the council to take it ahead, and so feel free to put in whatever other queries that are there. Of course, this is me. I will not get much into it. Narendra Sahu from VISTA InfoSec, and I've been there for like more than almost 30 years of experience. My own company, VISTA InfoSec, is there, and every one of us knows Nitin Bhatnagar. He's Associate Director for the PCI Council India, and an extremely well-known person, very, very knowledgeable, a great friend. So welcome, Nitin, to the webinar, and thank you again for spending your time this 1 hour for all of us, and so many of us. Like, it's every second, Nitin, the numbers are just increasing. People are just jumping on the webinar. So thank you again, Nitin ji, for being there. And of course, there is
thank you, Madan.
Madan sir, of course, most of you, almost all of you would be knowing him. He is a very well-known industry scholar. And thank you again, Matan sir, for being there. Mr. Matan Kasalingam, he is the CISO. He was the CISO for NPCI, where I had the good fortune of working with him. And he was there earlier with HDFC, and now he's there with Vodafone Idea. He's heading the cybersecurity division. He's a very well-known speaker and a known, recognized industry stalwart. And of course, a brief about our company. We are there on an international basis. We are open for business collaborations across the world, partnerships, or even for people who are looking for a job. We are continuously hiring. We are ourselves PCI QSA, PCI SSA, PCI QPA, and so many other things. I'll quickly jump. So in case you're interested for applying for a job, do send in your resumes to hr@VISTAInfosec.com, especially from the PCI front. If you're looking for, even if you're a fresher, you're more than welcome to apply. And these are a few of the service portfolios that we have. I will not get into it much. We are there in compliance, governance, auditing, regulatory, privacy laws, local, international, everything. These are a few of the certifications and or attestations that we do provide for our clients. A few of our clients, local and worldwide, quite a few. And I will not make this a webinar about my company because this is about PCI DSS 4.0. So after this webinar is over, there will be a survey participation request This will just be a summary of your feedback on the webinar and what you would like to say, critical, positive, negative, whatever. We are all there to learn, and of course your suggestions for future webinars. All our webinars are based on suggestions received from our participants over the years. So do send in your note, and we'll be more than happy to take it ahead. All right, so these are the key highlights: introduction to PCI DSS standard 4.0, backgrounds and drivers for changes in the new standard, tips and guidelines from 3.2.1 to 4.0, how to prepare, and then audit requirements. All right, with that, I hand over the mic to Madan sir. Madan sir, you're welcome to open this webinar, and with your blessings, we take this thing ahead. Madan sir, I hope you're there. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Naren. Thank you for that yearly preview about VISTA InfoSec and giving a precursor on why we are here. So thanks for all the participants. Good afternoon to all of you. So today, ideally, we have gathered virtually for a very insightful conversation with my good friend Nitin to discuss the latest version of PCI DSS 4.0. The latest version of the payment security standards comes with significant changes. That's the understanding that I am given, and a lot of updates to the requirements and implementation. The version 4.0 replaces the established earlier 3.2.1 version, against which most of us in the industry are already certified for. The version 4.0 is also aimed at both strategically and tactically helping industries combat the current and evolving threat landscape. So that's the high level understanding that I am given to have on what we can look from version 4.0. I'm also briefed that 4.0 aims to meet the highest levels of security standards, requirements, and maintain the ongoing compliance processes. It is also aimed to introduce increased flexibility, improvements to processes, and providing a systematic method to implementing and enforcing the standards. These are high-level precursor and preview that I am given to understand from the 4.0, what industry can expect from the 4.0. On this forum, let's go through and try and get a better understanding with the version 4.0 from none other than Mr. Nitin Bhadnakar, the Associate Director with the Payment Security Council. Let's hear from Nitin himself. Thank you, Nitin. Thanks.
Yes,
I
thank
just
you.
now hand it over to you to take us through the same.
Thank you, Madan sir, for such a beautiful beginning. And just as a thought, for the participants, I would like to say something to build up on what Madan sir said. In all my experience interacting with the council, this has been one of the most discussed, and there have been like more than 6,000 pieces of feedback. Can you believe that? 6,000 pieces of feedback from more than 200 associated companies, more than 200. And they were all providing, I was also there, and they review each and every one of them. There's a live discussion that happens back and forth. Why this, why not that? And I can see, as a company, we are working on multiple standards, whether it is ISO, SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA, so many standards. But I can safely say that PCI DSS is, especially the 4.0 version, is one of the most well thought of, well discussed standard I've ever seen. It brings about quite a few paradigm shifts, and that is where we bought over Nitin sir. Nitinji, there is a fear factor in the industry on 4.0. What is going to happen? 4.0, that is going to kill us, and people are asking us to do readiness, and there's so many other things. So Nitinji, over to you on how should we take this ahead. There are like 14 questions, and we have like 40 minutes, so it's like almost 2 to 3 minutes per question. So make this snappy. Yeah, please.
No worries. Sure. Thanks, Narendra. I think interestingly, implementing the PCI DSS is going to be like a 2-year project, right? And please, I would request everyone, please do not think, you wait until 31st March 2024 to get started when the PCI DSS version 3.2 is going to get retired. So borrowing from the age-old principle of plan, do, check, act. This is how I see you, spending next 2 years. So plan. I think planning is the most key element. First thing first, you will need to read the new standard and understand all of the changes that have been made, and importantly, how they will affect your organization. So you have ample of time. Then set up
So
task forces,
yeah.
and groups to start implementing the necessary changes for your organization. Check. Work with your QSA to carry out a gap analysis. Have your QSA undertake a gap analysis to point out where these changes need to be made to ensure you meet the new requirements. And then act where you implement the necessary work so that, for your 2024 assessment, which definitely is going to happen on version 4.0, you will be able to continue to meet the PCI DSS requirements, which you can see on the screen also in this slide. Plan, do, check, act. Q4 of 2022 is what you should keep yourself your resources aligned to the planning, and then 2023 close to Q3 you should be doing what has to be done, and then check and then act accordingly to meet the the new requirements of the standards of PCI DSS version 4.0. There are some future dated requirements for which you have time until Q1 of 2025, which means until then the future dated requirements are going to be best practices. Over to you, Naren.
Okay, so let us start off with the first question, Nitin. Nitin, for the day. All right, let me pull up my screen over here. Okay, so the first question that you already answered is, what is the timetable for organizations to make the transition? Now you've already given the timelines, Nitin. So let me make it a bit more incisive. Thank you again for that. The first question is that, in a very practical way, of course, as you rightly said, don't wait for the last minute, because as per the council, it's like a 2-year project. You can't just jump into it. It's not like a change from PCI DSS 3 to 3.1 or 3.1 to 3.2 or 3.2.1. It's a major change. So instead of waiting for the end of 2024, how soon would you recommend companies, instead of saying get certified tomorrow or next week or next month, how soon would you say practically all the companies should look at getting certified? That by this, say by 2023 end, you should be certified, or first quarter of 2024, you should be certified.
So this is this is where so let me explain it this way. So the 3.2.1 is going to be active for next 2 years after the 4.0 is released. Now the 4.0 is released on 31st of March, 1st of April onwards. You have next 2 years. So this is a transition period. So industry has to understand this is a transition period from March 2022 until 31st March 2024. So this is intended, the intent is to provide organizations with time to become familiar with these changes, in version 4.0, update their reporting templates and forms, and plan for and implement changes to meet the updated requirements. Now, this is compliance pertaining question on the compliance when you want to get certified and all. I think this is where you need to check with the payment networks, payment brands, where you will get more clarity on how the compliance programs are going to run, specifically to the standard. Now, talking specifically about the transition, as of March 31st, 2024, PCI DSS 3.2.1 will retire, and 4.0 will become the only active version of the standard. Now, here to give organizations time to properly integrate, the changes that are going to come or that are there in version 4.0, most new requirements in PCI DSS 4.0 are future dated. Now, the new requirements are considered best practices, which I just highlighted, until 31st March of 2025, which is Q1 for us. After this date, the new requirements are effective and applicable and must be fully considered as part of the PCI DSS assessment. So this is the time period where you have to transition yourself from version 3.2.1 to version 4.0. And once the standard retires, you have no choice. You have to opt version 4.0 for all your assessments.
Wow, that is really, really something, Nitin. But just as a quick thought on this, so you are saying in essence that from the first quarter of 2023, better you get certified, but you have the flexibility of keeping those good to have or future implementable controls for a later date, and as you go on the standard, and ensure that you are implementing that, and by the first quarter of 2025, you have to be fully onboarded, no exceptions, no questions asked. Did I understand that well?
No, I think it's very simple. For me, the version 3.2.1 will get retired on 31st March 2024.
Right.
First
Okay.
April 2024, version 4.0 is going to be the only active version of the standard that the industry has to adopt.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so the 2 years that I'm talking about, the Plan, Do, Check Act that you all can see on the screen is the transition phase for you to start moving from version 3.2.1 to version 4.0.
That's super. Okay. So, Nitin, coming to the next question, and guys, to the entire team watching the show, please drop in your questions, whatever it is. Please drop in it in the box itself, and we'll make an attempt to answer it at the earliest. So, coming to the next one. All right. So, Nitin, the next question is: can you please highlight some of the new requirements included in the standard? There is so much fear factor that this would be there, that would be there, this would happen, that would happen. So what is your take? And what is your take means what is the council has to say? New requirements, drastic requirements, drastic.
Yeah, so I think I'll quickly highlight those. I think the 12 core PCI DSS requirements remain fundamentally the same. So there's no change to the 12 core PCI DSS requirements that we all know. Right, the several new requirements addresses the new requirements that are being added are going to address the evolving risks and threats to the payment data and reinforce security as a continuous process. And some examples are there: requirements to prevent and detect the phishing attacks. So there are two new requirements: requirement number 5.4.1 and 12.6.3.1. For one is to process and automate the mechanism to detect and protect the personnel against the phishing attacks. One. Second is to create awareness trainings for phishing and related attacks and social engineering. Second most important requirement that has evolved in DSS 4.0 is on the authentication. Now, multi-factor authentication for all access into the CD, which is the cardholder data environment, this will replace the current requirement for MFA for all access into the CD by administrative personnel. Now, the real requirement, the requirement for the MFA, multi-factor authentication for remote access from outside the entity's network remains in the standard. Now, that's another requirement apart from the MFA, which is changed, is increase the password length from 7 to 12 characters due to the feedback that we have received that 7 is no longer sufficient. And we all know the current computing powers have gone on a different stage altogether, right? The next requirement that has changed is of use of group, shared, and generic accounts. So, I'm sure you will know, Naren, this was prohibited in 3.2.1, but is now allowed if managed in accordance with elements stated in the requirements. So this has been allowed in version 4.0 with certain, the process that has to be followed. Now, there are two new e-commerce requirements to address the e-commerce skimming attacks have been also included within the version 4.0 of PCI DSS.
Wow, that's quite a few, Nitin, and we'll come to more changes.
Yeah.
See, this is what guys I keep speaking about in the forums, that other standards should take a leaf out of the way that PCI Council has really upgraded the standard to the topmost level. Phishing attacks, skimming attacks, and we're coming to quite a few more, and this is just the beginning. So stay with me. Next question, question number 3. We have PCI SSCs introducing a customized approach option with 4.0. So what is this customized approach?
So I think the customized approach, Narendra, is a new validation option. In addition to the traditional PCI DSS requirements and testing procedures that we all are familiar, right? And we call that as a defined approach, right? So the defined approach follows the traditional PCI DSS requirements and testing procedures to confirm that the requirements are in place. Now, the customized approach provides the flexibility for organizations to achieve security objective of a requirement in a different way than the defined approach specifies, right? So with the customized approach, entities can define the controls that they will implement to meet the stated customized approach objective, but are expected to still provide clear demonstration that the payment data is being protected, right? Now, this approach supports organizations using security approaches that may be different than the traditional PCI DSS requirements. Now here the customized approach, interestingly, also provides greater flexibility for organizations choosing to use alternate security controls, allowing for innovations in security technologies and methods, and flexibility for how the requirements are applied to different environments. So this is what you will see as part of the customized approach. And this is the two different approaches we will discuss during more as we move forward. But the customized approach is customized approach is a new option or a new approach that we have come up along with the DSS 4.0 standard.
A couple of quick questions on this, but how do, of course, I'm sure the council has thought of this, but how do you keep checks and balances? Because that was really like an industry buzz when the draft was released. So how do you keep check on, whether people have not really watered down the standard and really been in touch with the spirit of the requirement? Because see, now it is hard. In PCI DSS, it's black and white. There's no gray area. Either you do it or you're out. So if you come with a customized approach. Yeah.
So let me put it in this way. So this is a customized approach is a decision for each entity, based on the entity's choice to implement something other than the defined approach to achieve the requirements, which has been defined objectives. Now entities here should work with their QSs and acquirers to ensure the approach meets the requirements set forth in PCI DSS for the customized approach and is acceptable to the acquirer. So the acquirer has to accept the approach submitted by the QSs or by the not the QSs but by the entity who has opted to go for the customized approach as an option to meet the DSS requirements. So they have to work with their QSs. That's the only thing that I can say at this point. And they have to once they have met the requirements which are being laid down by the DSS 4.0 version 4.0, they have to submit it back to the acquirers for their consensus and acceptance.
Okay, so one of the viewers just took a question from mine, Nitin. Is it Mr. Tinker, I guess? So what the question is, the customized approach sounds same as compensating control. So what would you say to that?
Compensating control, it's not the compensating control exactly, but you have to look at it.
The core remains the same. You can call it differently, but it almost sounds the same. So what would you say to that?
Not really. No, not really. I'll tell you. Compensating controls are there. So it has to meet the certain objectives of the requirements. But for the customized approach, see the approach is intended. I'll clarify why. This approach is intended for entities with the robust security processes and strong risk management practices, including but not limited to a dedicated risk management department or an organization-wide risk management approach has to be followed by the organizations who are going to consider customized approach. So it's not anyone can come up and say that they want to have a customized approach as an option. Okay, that's it. And I said the entities have to discuss with their QSAs. And this approach they are going to take has to be accepted by an acquirer. So there are check and balances put in place. Who has to who or how they are going to get the customized approach as an option or as an approach to meet the DSS requirements.
Okay, another question. Again, this is very, very interesting. So, has there been any changes in the scoping requirements, and is there any new template for the scoping that entities used and is acceptable in PCI DSS 4.0? Has the scoping requirement changed in any way, Nitin?
I think there obviously the DSS 4.0 has come with some changes. I think what I would request, I think they should discuss with their QSs at this point, because the QSs are the best put forward because they have been working with the council on the standard. I think there are changes for sure, and I think you have to work with the QSs to get more clarity on the scoping, because this is more towards the compliance, and I may not be able to comment on the exact scoping and requirements of how this has to be carried out.
I understand. All right. So the next thing is then, What type of organization, Nitin? So you spoke about a customized approach, and that seems to be a very contentious topic here, across the years. There are so many questions still popping in. And so if I summarize it, what type of organization should consider using the customized approach? And
I
then
think I
perhaps
answered that.
you can blend it with what organization should consider using the defined approach. If you can give 1 or 2 examples.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the customized approach is
Just
what
some
I think I've already told you. Yeah.
Examples.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you any entity. I'll give you for both. What type of organization should consider. Let me not tell you first because I've already told the customized approach. Let me tell you what the defined approach. The types of organization should consider. So defined approach supports the entities with controls in place that meets the PCI DSS requirements as stated.
Right.
Now, this approach may also suit the entities that want more direction about how to meet the security objectives, including entities that are new to information security or PCI DSS. Right. So this is the defined approach. Now, the customized approach, let me reiterate and repeat, the entities with the robust security processes and strong risk management practices, including but not limited to a dedicated risk management department or an organization-wide risk management approach if they are following. They are the one who should consider opting for the customized approach.
Okay, so so if I can summarize, you're saying in a sense that companies who are new to this thing or in the not very mature, they should perhaps stick to the defined approach so that they are not introducing complexities. And then once you're mature enough, very good in-house team and risk management process, then think about a customized approach, because if you make a mistake, the repercussions will be phenomenal, right?
Correct. That's true.
Okay, so in that case, Nitin, just coming back to the same thing, my next question. So can an organization use both, both customized and defined in one ROC? Can they do that?
No, I think definitely they can do that. Let me see. It's practically they can do that. I think that's not a problem. So most of let me brief it in this way. The DSS requirements can be met using either defined or customized approach. However, there are several requirements do not have a stated customized approach objective. Now, the customized approach is not an option for these requirements. That's let me clarify that. Now, entities can use both the defined and customized approaches within their environment. This means an entity, anyone who is going for DSS, could use the defined approach to meet some requirements and use the customized approach to meet the other requirements. Now, this also means that an entity could use the defined approach to meet a given PCI DSS requirement for one system component, or within one environment, and use the customized approach to meet that same PCI DSS requirement for a different system component or or within a different environment. Now, in this way, a PCI DSS assessment could include your both defined approach and the customized approaches. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, the organization can use a combination of defined approach and the customized approach.
That's very well explained, Nitin. And as I was reading the standard, that's what I understood. And so at this point, again, I would reiterate to the industry that do not take the standard for granted. Start working on a readiness assessment, read the standards, and you need to start preparing. And I really love this thing about the customized approach, because one of the things that I found slightly like a blessing or a curse, if you can say that, is that everything was black and white. Even if that particular requirement was not very well suited for an environment, still you had to do it. But if there is a customized approach and you are fairly mature enough, and your QSA agrees and your acquirer agrees, you can always change the way of working, and that will really be something to meet. Like, we work with payment brands, so in that case, for a payment brand, the PCI DSS normal approach is not really enough. You might need to evolve on that. So that's a great way, Nitin. Thank you again. So coming to the next one.
Yeah.
So okay, it's mostly repetitive by nature now. So who determines whether an entity uses a customized approach? So it will be basically from the QSA from the company side, and then with the QSA and the acquirer, right? Or is there something else to that?
Yeah. The QSs, the entities have to use their QSs for sure, and then the acceptance of the customized approach has to come from the acquirer.
Okay, so in that case, what if Nitin, there is this nice person, Ruth. She's asked a nice question. What if the organization getting certified is an acquirer? Then from whom will they take the approval?
I think this is more compliance. I think the payment you have to the compliance programs are run by the payment brands. So the
Right.
payment brands are the one who have to be approached for this kind of concerning all the compliance related concerns and queries that you may have on the standard. So PCI standard body may not be able to maybe not be in a position to tell because every market has a different way of operation, and I think I would suggest here to approach payment brands to get more clarity.
All right. So then coming to the next thing, Nitinji, in your initial brief on the upgrade to the standard, you mentioned that there are some changes in the authentication systems. So can you shed some more light on that? Because this was really like, this is one of the oldest discussed update to PCI DSS 4.0. Like since the past 1.5 years, people have been guessing about this MFA and different whether it will be allowed, not allowed, in what situations will it be allowed. So this is one of the most contentious areas. So can you shed some more light on what the evolution is happening for authentication requirements?
I already spoke about it, but let me go with that in more detail. I've talked about multi-factor authentication, and then I talked about password and passphrases, and then I talked about group shared and generic accounts. So let me start with the multi-factor authentication. So I think the industry feedback, Narendra, and consideration into the kind of threat landscape that we've been seeing drove several changes to authentication requirements in DSS 4.0. And talking about the multi-factor authentication, so I think there's a new requirement which is going to be effective from 31st March 2025, that the MFA is implemented for all access into the CD. And the updated standard includes clarification that MFA is required for both access into the CD, remote access, second, the remote access originating outside the entity's network, and that applying it to one type of access does not replace the need to apply another MFA for other access. So that's the change that has come for the multi-factor authentication. The second requirement on the authentication, I think, password and passphrases. So there is an increase in password length from 7 characters to 12 based on feedback that 7 characters is no longer sufficient based on the modern computing power. The 12 character length is going to be effective 31st March 2025. So until then, the entities are required to adhere to 7 characters in accordance with the DSS version 3.2.1. Now, we have retained the requirement to change passwords every 90 days, since for some entities, passwords are the only protection they use, and changing them periodically can prevent formerly breached ones from being reused. So, however, the requirement to change passwords will only apply to systems without MFA. Example, if MFA is implemented on systems that are in scope but not in the CD. For example, for systems protected with MFA, this the password change requirements can be marked as not applicable. So that's the change that has come on the password and passphrases. Talking about the group shared generic accounts in version 3.2.1, use of this account was prohibited. I think this requirement was modified in version 4.0. Now, such that the entities may use them if their use is managed, that is exceptional circumstances only, limited time frame, justifications and approvals, confirmation of user identity, and actions attributable to the individuals. So that's the major change that has happened on the authentication. Not a change, I would say. We have evolved on the authentication requirements from version 3.2.1 to version 4.0.
That's a great terminology that you've used. I agree with you so much wholeheartedly, Nitin, that the right word is evolution. It's not really changed. You've already take into consideration the evolving threat landscape, and everybody appreciates the way PCI DSS is keeping in touch with the evolving threat landscape also, and much more so with this. So one quick question from the audience is micro-segmentation technique acceptable segmentation technique as per PCI DSS 4.0? Is there any guidance on micro-segmentation?
I think I would suggest, I think this is more towards the compliance, because you have to check with the QSs at this point on how the segmentation has to be worked out. So I would request the whoever asks this question, so check with your QSs on how the segmentation requirements are going to work.
Okay, Nitin, if you don't mind, I'll just quickly answer it from the QSA front, if you're okay with it.
That's pretty much fine.
Thank you. See, so the answer, even now, for 3.2.1 also, many of our clients have micro segmentation in place. So what we do is that we basically apply the current guidelines to the micro segmentation, micro segmentation environments, wherein we ensure that, okay, if there is a micro segment which there is card data and there is a micro segment where there is non-card data, then how are you preventing data from flowing from one network to the other? How are you ensuring that the data is safe? How is the audit maintained? How is the audit rates maintained, logs maintained? So we are basically ensuring that the same audit requirements for a normal network segregation is carried forward to micro segmentation also. So I understand that in a micro segmentation, it is more on a SDN, like a software defined network. So in that case, as a matter of fact, from the logical perspective also, you can apply the same rules to an SDN and it works. That's what is. And if you need some more very specific guidance, you can write to me. I'll be showing my email address at the end. You can write to me, and then if there is a specific case that you would like to understand as to how you can check, I would be more than happy to share that with you. So moving ahead, actually, okay, there is another question.
Let me. I think someone asked me about the scoping. I just let me bring that also. So I think the annual PCI DSS scope confirmation is one of the new requirement that has come in. So I'm really my apologies, not to highlight that. So first step in preparing for a PCI DSS assessment is to accurately determine the scope of the review. So requirement number 12.5.2. I think it talks about the PCI DSS scope is documented and confirmed by the entity at least once every 12 months and upon significant change. I think just to note, I think this is one requirement upon significant change to the in-scope environment. So that's the requirement annual PCI DSS scope review. So PCI DSS scope is documented and confirmed by the entity at least once every 12 months and upon significant changes to this in-scope environment. Now, what the entities here have to identify or validate, scoping validation includes the identifying all data flow for the various payment stages, not pages. I update all data flow diagrams for requirement 1.2.4, identifying all locations where the account data is stored, processed, and transmitted, including but not limited to any location outside the current defined CD, applications that process CHD, transmission between systems, networks, and file backups. Now, identifying all system components in the CD connected to the CD or security of the CD. Identify all segmentation controls in use and the environments from which the CD is segmented, including justifications for environments being out of scope. Identifying all connections from third-party entities with access to the CD. So I think the step for the validation, I think it's now annual. I think annual PCI DSS scope confirmation is required at least once every 12 months and upon significant change. So you have to be there's a thin line between 12 months. We will say many stakeholders may say that 12 months, once every 12 months. But you have to read between the lines upon significant changes. If you are making any changes within the 12 months, you have to immediately take that into consideration and make sure that the scoping has been reconfirmed.
So, Nitin, there are just questions just pouring in. I'll just take one last one before we get back to schedule. So, it's an interesting question. So, the person is asking if there are going to be 2 active versions of PCI till 2024. When are we expecting the QSAs to be completely trained for the version 4.0 assessment and ready to certify for 4.0? So, what is the deadline for the QSAs to be fully ready?
So I think the answer to this question is no one will be qualified to perform the DSS 4.0 assessments immediately after the release of the standard. Let me be very clear on this. So there will be a time gap to allow assessors and organizations, time to become familiar with the new standard, with the DSS 4.0. And the first training will be available in June. I think you can keep an eye on the PCI Security Standard website. Now, this training will be a transitional training meaning it will cover what has actually changed in the standard and in the report. Now, there will be an exam following the computer-based training to test the knowledge of the PCI DSS version 4.0. Now, eventually, the transitional training will be rolled into the requalification training going forward. So we have to. I have already started saying that you have to plan and do and check and act. So these are the 4 stages that you need to keep in mind, and this is just a starting of planning yourself how well your position to adopt to the new standard. So investing time in understanding the standard, reviewing the requirements, getting in touch with your QSs to understand how this is going to impact your overall security posture is one thing I think you need to start looking into it. And definitely once the transitional training comes in for the QSs, they are well equipped with to understand how they are going to execute the assessments, is when you can start thinking of moving on to the version 4.0.
Wow, that's a great answer. Thank you for that again, Nitin. So then the next thing. So what about the yearly compliance requirements, Nitin? So there is this VAPT, quarterly VA, penetration testing, half yearly, segmentation test, ASV, external PT, so many things. Has there been any changes in that schedule that companies need to start preparing?
Yeah, I think, see, the standards requirements, as I said, the fundamental requirements same. So there's no change to that. So I think there one thing that has changed. I think when you do the vulnerability assessments, initially the internal vulnerability assessment used to be without the credentials. The only thing is that you have to use the credentials even to do the vulnerability scans internally. So that's one of the change on the testing front that we will see in the standard.
So the shifting is more to the gray box rather than companies getting away with the black box and saying there are no findings.
Yeah.
Super. That's a good point actually, because that always used to bother me, that companies take that shortcut to just avoid findings. Great. So the next thing then is you spoke about initially about new changes in authentication and phishing attacks, skimming attacks and stuff. But what about evolving technologies such as cloud and mobile? Now, I'm aware that some years back, I think 2017 sometime, or 18 something, the council released a guidance for cloud security and PCI payments. So it was a great to read. And but has any of that been made a mandate for cloud and mobile? Because there is no reference to it in 3.2.
Yeah. So the PC, when it comes to DSS 4, I'll specifically talk about that. And PCI DSS has always been technology neutral. And with the new requirements based on the fundamental security principles that applies to all type of environments, even if the type of technology is not specifically called out in the standard, the intent of the security requirement is still applicable. The version 4.0 includes refocused requirements to better emphasize their broad applicability to all types of technology, and added objective statements to better support different technologies such as cloud environments. Now, in addition, version 4.0 includes the customized approach to support a range of evolving payment environments, technologies, and methodologies for achieving security. Now, the customized approach that we discussed provides the entity more flexibility if they're using different processes or technologies to achieve the requirements objective. Now, this also clarifies what needs to be achieved with more flexibility in how the organization achieves the desired outcome, security outcome. Now, what we have done is that we have also added some examples to the scope of PCI DSS requirement section to call out cloud components. We also reworked on Appendix A1, formerly for shared hosting providers. Now we are calling it multi-tenant service providers. Now, with a definition of that term that clearly also includes cloud providers, we have also included a new requirement that multi-tenant service providers have to support their customers for penetration testing. So this is a quite change. I don't know why I'm saying change. It has, the standards have evolved. So the requirements have evolved, and we are trying to support new evolving technologies with the DSS 4.0, so that industry is benefited in securing the payment data.
Yeah, that's a great chain, Nitin. The reason being, see, we have many clients who are hosted on Amazon and AWS and all. And as you are aware, and the rest of the industry is aware, the nuisance that happens when you are trying to do a very strong penetration test on, an Azure environment or an AWS environment, the amount of permissions to be taken, and that might not even be granted. Now, with this change, I believe the council will even be forcing these cloud providers to ensure that the access is given for doing this
Yeah.
test. So that's a great change, Nitin. So,
Yeah.
so our appreciation to
Now,
on that.
yeah.
Okay, sorry. Now, the next thing is, what about how does then, in that case, the council or PCI DSS 4.0? You spoke about cloud and mobile, but what about emerging technologies like blockchain or IoT implementation in payments like NFC and all? Now RuPay in India has started RuPay payments using NFC. So IoT based payments, how will that all be taken care of?
No, that's not. I think I answered that part, but let me reiterate.
Yeah.
PCI DSS has always been technology neutral, and in that, whether you talk about UPI, you talk about BNPL or QR codes, whatever you can think of, or the real-time payments. PCI DSS being technology neutral, the requirements are intended to apply to all types of requirements. Now, even if a type of technology has not specifically been called out in the standard, the intent of the security requirements is still largely applicable. So the version 4.0 includes refocusing requirements and adding objective statements to better support different technologies. Now, in addition, PCI DSS version 4.0 includes the customized approach for most requirements. Now, specifically to provide entities that have implemented strong risk management practices with more flexibility if they're using different ways to achieve their requirements defined objective. So it's very clear. I think the intent of the security requirements are largely applicable, are still applicable, and the requirements are intended to apply to all types of environments.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Nathan, because see, what happens is that even you must have read about it, companies online that they're shifting, they are looking at putting up the entire payments database onto a blockchain environment. So in that case, how will you be checking your card data in a blockchain environment? So that those things becomes very, very tricky as to how will you be managing that. And that's where, if you're having a customized approach, I think with a good QSA and with the right support from the right acquirer, you can actually make it happen and do something more beyond the traditional defined approach that this is what you have to do and nothing more, nothing less, black and white, and that kind of it, which might not even be required by everyone, because we've got payment brands. We are even certifying some payment brands as a company, and their requirements from PCI DSS is much more higher, and the PCI DSS is actually a level lower than their security requirements. But at the same time, we are working on small startups having say 20-50 people, and for them even the PCI DSS 3.2.1 is too high because they are too small. So that's where I believe a good combination of even a customized approach will give the necessary weightage to the control requirements to moving ahead. So that's a great way of moving ahead, Nitin. So coming to the next thing. Okay, now this again seems like repetition, but again I'll need some specific answers on this, because this is like a user queries are there. Does PCI DSS 4.0 support secure infrastructure used for instant payments or real-time payments, such as for UPI, BNPL, QR codes? So I believe, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I already answered that. PCI has been technology neutral, so the requirements are intended to apply to all types of environments.
Yeah.
So I think that's a one-line answer to all questions pertaining to any emerging technology that we are talking today.
Actually, I believe, yeah. So actually, I believe, Nitin, if I think about it, the intent behind those questions by these people who are part of the industry, is that are there any specific requirements for those standards? Like a UPI standard for UPI or for IoT, like how you have some specific requirements for authentication or cloud and all. So is there any specific requirements for UPI types, payment systems or QR codes? So I believe you'll have to build that in what you're trying to say with a customized approach, right? I got it right? Okay.
That's true.
Uh,
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
okay. So in that case, Nitin, as we are coming to the end and we have to close, so my next and my last question would be, what would be the first steps that you would advise organizations to take as they embark? First step, baby steps, like first do this and then move into that. Like you spoke very well on the plan, do, check, act part. So I believe the first step that you had articulated earlier would be the readiness assessment and just getting the scoping redone and stuff. How would you
Yeah.
articulate?
No, I think so. I think more importantly, the organizations have to start prioritizing. The PCI DSS version 4.0 if they are already on DSS 3.2.1, because the key priorities for DSS 4.0 were to continue to meet the security needs for the payment industry, and then promote security as a continuous process, and I think enhance validation methods and procedures, and improve flexibility for organizations using different methods and technologies to achieve security. Now, most importantly, what I would say is start reviewing the standard. I think that's the first baby step for anyone who wants to quickly jump onto DSS 4.0. They have to start reading the standard, because it's a huge document, and start planning accordingly. Discuss with the QSs. Discuss with your QSs, how well this is going to get executed for your kind of an environment. Define whether you are looking for a customized approach or a defined approach, and then accordingly, follow the plan, do, check, act. That's what I would say. So PDCA is the cream that you can take out of the session, as I think, and these you'll see more updates coming on DSS 4.0 going forward, and there's going to be a lot of discussions that are going to happen. Do keep a watch on the PCI Security Standards Council website. So we are also doing a symposium in June, which is also going to be more detailed, because as we speak, we are getting so many queries from the industry, and hopefully we will try to absorb those queries and see how well we can respond back, and that can help the industry get benefited of what are the changes that are going to more come by, and how they are going to execute those changes, and how they're going to implement those changes. Closely work with your QSs, I think, is what my request to all the stakeholders would be at this point, and make sure that you understand those challenges that you may have, not the challenges, or the impact that you may have on your current environment or current version 3.2.1 that you have been adopting. So I think best way, start reading the standard, wait for some trainings to come up from PCI, and for the QSs, I think any which way the transition training is on the way in June, and I think we are all set.
Nitin, as we end, there's a funny question. Not really funny. It's a good point. As somebody has picked up, is that, and I believe and I agree with the person, is that on the PCI Council FAQ site, it's like a mine, like gold mine of information. More than the standards, I love, if I might say that in a good way, I love reading the FAQs. So the point is, so the question that is asked is, how soon can we expect the new FAQs to be online for PCI DSS 4.0? That's by Timothy, and he's asked a valid question. How soon will the FAQs be online?
So we all are working on this. We are all working on this. I think it's evolving. Like the standard has evolved, the support, the implementation guidance support, and whatever is going to be there is going to be out. See, as I said, we have still 3 months. The standard is out. The QSs are only going to get trained by June. So April, May, and June is a time where you should at least start understanding this standard, because nobody is going to implement. I have very specifically clarified, no one can do an assessment on this immediately, because any which way, the June is the first thing when the transition training is going to start. So I think until then, start reading it, and if you have any questions, any queries that you may have on the standard, please feel free to drop to us, or probably to your QSs, so that at least we can work on those queries and support industry in coming up with the necessary guidance and the FAQs.
Yes, and I can reiterate that so well, Nathan. Let me give you a personal example. like I am a SSA, software, software security assessor, secure software assessor, and when I signed up, there just a primary module was there. By the time I finished, and we signed up a client in Europe, and they wanted the software on a terminal to be certified. Okay, so I wrote to the council. This really happened to me. All right, I'm not joking. So I wrote to the council, their team, and we have a client in Finland, and they want a module and their terminal to be certified. Does PCI SSF permit that? They immediately send me a note that dear Mrs. Sao, new module B for terminal payment security software has been launched, and you are required to get certified on that also. Can you believe that? So that coincided so well, so they made me do that. So now I just got a notification like a month back, like 2 months back, that a new module has been introduced, module C, which is for software payment software, secure payment software. A new module has been launched. So what I'm trying to say to the industry is that I can say that with no hangups, that the way PCI is evolving and the way PCI is listening to all your queries, and they are forcing us as QSAs. I wouldn't say forcing because I'm enjoying the learning part, to read and upgrade our skill sets. And there is always something new to look at now. I have to pass that new exam also, which is of secure software assessment. That's module C in SSFA. So that has also been launched. I got the intimation to do that. So as your queries increase, because when I did SSF the first time, what I asked was in PCI DSS, there were so many requirements for a software to be eligible, but in SSF there is no such eligibility criterion. And for those of you who have attended the earlier version of SSF, the earlier programs on a webinar on SSF that was hosted by our dear friend Nitin, and that time Nitin had answered that point also, that no such guidelines are there, but the standards are evolving. But the standards have evolved, and they have come up with new guidelines for eligibility and how the QSs have to upgrade themselves for terminal software for software assessment. And I believe like in the next 6 months, there will be a new module also. And every time a new module is introduced, we get 90 days to upgrade ourselves or we lose our certification. So 90 days is all we get as a SSF to upgrade ourselves or lose our certification from SSF perspective, I mean, not from the QSA perspective. So so it's always fun, Nitin. So any ending thoughts as we are wrapping up? And that was the last question.
I think we'll have Mathan to speak if he has something.
Yes, Mathan sir, I hope you are there, and I really hope that you to hear the discussion that happened. And as an industry stalwart and leading so many organizations, what has been your take, and what would you like to share with the industry in closing?
So firstly, thanks Nitin for a very quick and most appropriate rebriefing that is done by you. Interesting. Personally, I did manage to. I have taken notes as well. I did manage to understand that there is quite a bit of change between the running version to the 4.0 as industries try to adopt to the 4.2 standards. But given that majority of us do understand 3.2.1, it is not a mammoth or an uphill task ahead of us. While there are changes, I think it is definitely a way and means by which each of us in the industry can still manage to get through with the 4.0 requirements. So it's not an unachievable task or so. That's the clear understanding that I did manage to get. All that it might require is a most appropriate planning by each of us, and a most appropriate way to yearly engage with our QSAs, do a readiness check, and thereby prepare ourselves. Obviously, there will be gaps because there are a lot more newer controls that are getting introduced, and compliance, knowing PCI already being very, very prescriptive in nature, with 4.0, the prescription would also become stronger and be detailed with regard to the MFA and 2FA requirements in depth as well, right? So that obviously, to me, it means there is a lot of work that might come as part of the post-readiness assessment to fill the gaps, etc. But I think it is not an uphill, unachievable task for us to do as businesses. So we will continue to start doing with the rightful preparation guidelines that you have recommended to us, possibly starting with the review of the published standards already that is available, and then possibly engage with our QSAs to do a readiness assessment, identify our gaps, and then possibly bridge the gaps as appropriately. The timeline given from an industry standpoint, I do believe that it is adequate enough, given that we have quite 2 years in front of us to transition from the 3.2.1 to 4.0. So from an industry standpoint, I think it is quite reasonable, and I don't think that should be a challenge for most of us to acquire. Right? So with that, I will hand it over to you, Naren, for your conclusive remark. And thanks a lot, Nathan.
Thanks,
thank you, Matan sir.
Thanks,
thank you a lot. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, that was a pleasure to hear him. And as both Nitin and Matan sir mentioned regarding the readiness service, I've just posted on our chat window. We have our PCI DSS 4.0 readiness check service also. So you're welcome to visit and drop us a line. And if there is something we can do, we'll be more than happy. And again, my special thanks to my dear friend, my brother, Nitin Bhatnagar, who never shies from helping not just me, anybody else in the industry. Also, thank you, Nitin. You're always a blessing. Thank you. And of course, special thank you to Matan sir also for being there. He was so busy. He's traveling all the time, and still he is logging in from his phone and speaking to us. And thank you so much, Matan sir, for being there. And of course, there is a readiness assessment services. Book a session for free. We give like 15 minutes of free time for any sort of consulting that you might need. And of course, the general reminder for the survey, please to share your valuable feedback that you might have, your opinion on the webinar, on the quality of the talk, or any new subject that you want to be taken up. And there are so many questions. I'm sorry we couldn't take all of you. We're already 1 hour over. And we'll be, I'll personally be replying to it. If there's something specific for Nitinji, he will reply to you directly. And that's our LinkedIn page, Facebook page. Do follow. We've got thousands of people over there and like more than 2,000 users on YouTube too. And that's our coordinates. Do drop us a line. And if there is anything that I can do to help, even forget from the professional side or whatever, if I can help you on a personal basis also to understand the standard, solve your queries, I'll be more than happy for that. So thank you again, Nitin. The time just flew by, my friend, but I'm so glad that you could spare this time. And I'm sincerely obliged to you for being there, Nitin. On behalf of all the people who signed up and are there, attended, thank you.
Thanks, Naren. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon next month with a new webinar. Till then, stay safe. Bye-bye.